Premier Susan Holt, thanks so much for speaking with me.
That's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Premier, you're fresh back from your trip with the other Canadian premiers to Washington. What do you feel was accomplished?
A lot of learning. We had a lot of different conversations with people, and it's in the pulling together all the different things that they said that has given us some great insight on what's resonating with Americans, what isn't important to them, and what mechanisms we have to try to influence the White House's decision about tariffs, and the best way to make that case.
And speaking of the White House, you and the other premiers did meet at the White House with a couple of officials there. You met with Deputy Chief of Staff James Blair, as well as a senior White House hiring advisor. How did that meeting go?
It was interesting, certainly, to have all of us there at the White House and to chat with somebody who is the 2IC, I guess, to the President's Chief of Staff. He was very explicit with what he had to tell us. He chose his words carefully, but he made his points very clear about the president's perspective on trade globally, and the kind of reset that he wants to advance, his desire to see a level playing field, at least in his eyes.
And did you feel that they learned from you, from the contingent as well of premiers, and were they willing to take on that kind of information and insight?
I think so. I think certainly with some of the conversations we had with senators and Congress people, there was information that we could share about how Canadian inputs really affect what the U.S. exports, the impact on jobs in their states, which we were reassured to hear is already starting to become clear. We met with the chair of a subcommittee on trade who said that he was hearing from manufacturers in his state that their lack of access to zinc was going to hurt jobs in his state. And for that reason, he put in a call up to the White House to flag that to them. And so those sorts of things are encouraging for us to hear and to understand so that we can best work our channels to get all of those voices demonstrating that these tariffs will hurt prices, will cause inflation, will reduce what the U.S. can export to the rest of the world, and hopefully those things will resonate.
Now back to that meeting at the White House. Right after that meeting, the BC Premier said that the contingent, the group, had really pushed back, not only about tariffs, but also about Trump's threat of annexing Canada. But then James Blair, one of the people that you had just met with, posted on X, to be clear, we never agreed that Canada would not be the 51st state. So do you feel that's an indication of how seriously they took that meeting?
That wasn't a significant point of discussion. Mr. Blair stated clearly that we should take the president at his word when he talks about things like the 51st state, which I think Canadians understand that we will not let that happen. Right, like we're going to fight for Canada's sovereignty.
Now, Dominic LeBlanc and Canada's ambassador to the United States, Kirsten Hillman, were also in Washington when you and all the other premiers were there. How much strategizing was there in advance in conjunction with the federal government as to who should try to accomplish what?
Well, we were with Minister LeBlanc and Ambassador Hillman on Wednesday morning doing just that, mapping out, who was meeting with whom, what we were each learning about the hot buttons for various states, various leaders. It was made clear by a number of people that the meeting that Minister LeBlanc had with the future Secretary of Commerce Lutnick, that Mr. Lutnick will be a critical figure in this. So there's quite a bit of interplay between the federal government and their meetings and the premiers and our meetings.
Okay. Now, we understand that New Brunswick is spending $19,000 US on Republican lobbyists to make its case in Washington. Why is that?
Well, it's because the impact of these tariffs on the New Brunswick economy will be devastating. We are already seeing the risk to jobs and to the businesses here, and to our economic activity and to our budgets. And so we are prepared to do everything we can to protect New Brunswick's workers, to protect New Brunswick businesses and our economy. And so we want to make sure that we are focusing our time and energy on the right people, that we are getting through to them with the right messages, that we'll see more of them picking up the phone, calling the White House and expressing the impact negative impact they see this having on the people of their state. And so I am not an expert in red states and congressmen and senators and governors, and those meetings can sometimes take months to get. We don't have months, we have weeks. And so we were looking for the right partner that could get us meetings quickly, that could make sure we made the best use of that time, and who can also help with follow-up, because I can't spend all my time in Washington. And it's great to go and have these first meetings, but critical to these meetings is following up, providing information, getting the right local examples in front of the right people. And so we engaged a partner who has that expertise to help us protect New Brunswick's economy.
And you think that's well worth $19,000 US per month?
I do.
And why was that contract subcontracted through a local firm here, Porter O'Brien?
Well, we reached out to Porter O'Brien because they're in our neck of the woods to ask if they knew anybody, and they did. And so it was them that did the introduction and the connection to the firm in the U.S. that we subcontracted through them.
How confident are you that all of these meetings, all of this strategizing is actually going to make a difference in changing Donald Trump's mind about these tariffs and about his seeming obsession with making Canada the 51st state?
Yeah, I wish I could speak with confidence about what's in Donald Trump's mind, but I can't. We know that things are uncertain and unpredictable, but we can't sit back and throw our hands up. I have to do everything possible to defend the jobs and the businesses of New Brunswick, because we don't want to see 6,000 people laid off because they can no longer sell their goods and partner with the American market. I have to do everything I can to make sure that our economy is protected and that our case is made to the governors and the Congress people and the administration officials to reduce our chances of tariffs, to reduce the tariffs, to eliminate them entirely. So I think it's what is needed for New Brunswick.
Premier Holt, thanks so much for this.
Thanks, Claire.